For years, the defining image of quantum computing has been the multi-tiered golden chandelier. But that iconic design recently collided with physical limits of thermodynamics. The core physical bottleneck lies in heat generation. Attempting to scale a monolithic cylindrical dilution refrigerator to hold thousands of qubits creates an insurmountable thermal load. To control those extra qubits, you have to pack more wiring into the exact same enclosed cylinder. Mathematically, the heat generated by that dense cabling breaks the required cryogenic environment. IBM recognized this thermodynamic wall, and as a result, they are moving away from the chandelier design for their future scaling roadmap. They are adopting a new engineering approach: solid aluminum, box-shaped modular cryogenic cells designed to sit in continuous rows. This specific rectangular geometry yields 12 times more internal wiring volume and 4 times the wiring surface area compared to the legacy cylinders. For superconducting systems to reach commercially useful scales, they must transition away from being isolated scientific instruments and toward modular data center infrastructure. Moving to modular boxes solves the spatial problem, but it introduces a complex networking challenge. How do independent quantum chips, housed in separate boxes, act as a single machine? To operate as a unified processor, the entire modular chain must maintain a strict environmental baseline. The components have to remain below 15 millikelvin. For context, 15 millikelvin is roughly 180 times colder than deep space. This diagram shows IBM's interconnect hierarchy, starting at the smallest scale with C couplers and M couplers. These are strictly intra-chip and short chip-to-chip links. They handle data transfer at the millimeter scale. But to bridge the physical gap between entirely separate cryogenic cells, IBM introduced a critical hardware component, the L coupler. The L coupler is a meter-scale superconducting coaxial line. It transfers microwave photons between separate modular boxes while holding the temperature perfectly steady. IBM has already validated this technology by physically linking 2 modules at their New York facility. This modular connection forms the physical foundation required for their ultimate target, the 2029 release of the IBM Quantum Starling system. By linking these modules, Starling is designed to reach 200 logical qubits, giving it the capacity to execute 100 million gate circuits. The L coupler and this modular cryogenic design are the physical prerequisites for achieving fault-tolerant quantum computing by the end of the decade. This timeline illustrates a paradox in IBM's strategy. Their CEO projects a measurable impact on company earnings by 2028 to 2029, even though full fault tolerance with Starling won't arrive until 2029 or later. The resolution to that paradox is that near-term commercial revenue isn't dependent on perfect fault-tolerant logical qubits. The first driver is massive infrastructure investment, the $2 billion Combined Quantum Foundry Initiative, backed equally by IBM and U.S. CHIPS Act incentives. The second technological driver is the ability to extract highly accurate data from noisy, imperfect quantum processors using error mitigation techniques. Strategies like zero-noise extrapolation and probabilistic error cancellation allow engineers to clean up quantum noise through software. We have concrete proof of this utility. Look at Algorithmic's landmark material simulation milestone published in mid-2026. This specific milestone demonstrated that complex chemistry and material problems can be simulated on noisy QPUs beyond what classical systems can verify. In domains like battery chemistry and advanced materials, even a 1% improvement in simulation accuracy justifies massive R&D spending from enterprise clients.
For the industries discussed, near-term quantum value is driven by error-mitigated utility in specific scientific domains, rather than the immediate arrival of a universal fault-tolerant machine. While error mitigation works for simulating physical materials, we have to look at whether these noisy workflows can actually solve abstract mathematical problems in the financial markets today. To test this, JP Morgan and IBM Quantum ran a pilot focusing specifically on portfolio optimization. The goal is to balance a portfolio of thousands of assets to maximize return while minimizing risk. When you add real-world constraints, this scales into a classically NP-hard problem. This flowchart illustrates the software architecture used to tackle it. the four-step hybrid QAOA loop. It starts with classical preprocessing. A classical computer builds the covariance matrices, encodes the risk and return trade-offs, and maps the problem to a QUBO Hamiltonian.
In step 2, the prepared problem is handed to the QPU. It runs shallow QAOA circuits using error mitigation to sample candidate states. In step 3, the QPU sends measurement expectation values back to the classical optimizer, updating variational parameters. The system rapidly loops through these steps, passing parameters back and forth until it converges on the optimal asset allocation. In this workflow, a quantum computer does not replace a classical server. It acts as an advanced coprocessor in a tight, iterative hybrid loop. Despite the mathematical elegance of the QAOA loop, it has not achieved a commercially viable advantage over classical systems in finance. Today, classical optimization engines like Gurobi, Cplex, and GPU tensor networks still completely dominate these commercial-scale portfolio models. This diagram shows the first mathematical reason why, the QUBO discretization penalty. Asset weights are naturally continuous, like allocating exactly 14.5% of your capital to a single stock. Converting those continuous weights into binary variables exponentially inflates the required qubit count far beyond current hardware limits. The second major mathematical hurdle is Barren Plateaus. As QAOA circuits get deeper to handle complex portfolios, the required mathematical gradients begin to vanish. When gradients vanish on a noisy QPU, the classical optimizer essentially gets stuck on a flat mathematical plane and cannot find the solution. Because of these bottlenecks, current quantum implementations in finance remain strictly exploratory proof-of-concept workflows. Until algorithmic breakthroughs overcome discretization and Barren plateaus, quantum finance pilots are foundational research, not production-ready tools. This matrix frames the broader industry reality. IBM's modular cryogenic breakthrough gives them a definitive lead in one highly specific area: scalable multi-chip superconducting systems. But quantum computing is a multi-architecture race, and competitors hold distinct leads in trapped ion fidelity, neutral atom arrays, and in photonics. For technical and financial strategists, simply waiting for the 2029 fault-tolerant Starling system to arrive is a strategic mistake. The highest value action today is actively developing the internal data architectures and hybrid classical quantum algorithmic pipelines required to interact with QPUs. Mastering the complex data handshake between classical optimizers and noisy quantum processors is a capability that takes years to build. The institutions that succeed in this landscape will be those that engineer hybrid pipelines today, long before perfect hardware arrives tomorrow. If you found this deep dive valuable, hit the like button, share, and subscribe to KYC AI Labs for more science behind the headlines.